Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. We're going to go over a few house rules, if you will. Just remember this evening that the speakers have nothing to do with this. The only thing is this microphone, and it's being put on the radio live right now, so be advised of that. Just a reminder, we have 3 colored flags. We have and if Delaney, you would just like throw one up so you guys know what it looks like. We have, with 2 minutes left, it is a green flag when you're speaking. 1 minute left with a yellow and 30 seconds left with the red. And then if she gets rid of the red, that's when I come on in front of the podium and tell you to stop it. No, it won't be quite like that. But anyway, that when the red goes away, you need to be done. So keep that in mind. Thank you for being here. Just remember the candidates, how this works is you will have a 2-minute opening explaining, folks, why you're running. Doesn't give you a lot of time to give you all your ideas that you have, but it gives you an idea of why you're running. You will then have 2 questions from our panel. You will then have 3 minutes to respond to each of those questions. Then you'll have 1 minute to close after the 2 questions that were asked to you. Tonight, our scorekeeper, of course, Delaney Dewey. She's normally on KICX 96.1 in the afternoons, so she's here tonight. Also, Tara Odell checking everybody in and all the paperwork we went through on this. Order of candidates by office kind of goes like this. Tonight, we're going to start out with the issue of half-cent sales tax in McCook. We're going to talk about that. And then after that, we're going to have the Nebraska Legislature, District 38, Nebraska State Board of Education, District 7, then the University of Nebraska Board of Regents, District 7, Nebraska Public Power District Subdivision 4, the NRD District 3, Red Willow County Sheriff's Office for that election that's going to be going on, the McCook School Board, and also City Council. That's the order that we will go into. Tonight we have 3 folks on our panel. We thank them very much for being here to help us out with the questions and everything. Sherry Skiles, of course, with the McCook Daily Gazette. Also Troy Brunts with the McCook Economic Development. And Tyler McCarty with the McCook Chamber of Commerce. Those folks are going to be the ones asking the questions. So I believe we're ready to get things started. We're going to start things off with talking about the half-cent sales tax. And from what I understand, we have Jeff Gross, who's going to come up and talk to us about that half-cent sales tax that you'll be voting for on November 8th. And by the way, you'll have a couple questions, too, from the panel, just like a candidate.
Okay. Thank you. As they said, my name is Jeff Gross, and I'm here representing, we have a strong committee that's been working diligently for quite some time on pushing the half-cent sales tax passage of that bond through. I would like to I want to explain a couple things with the half-cent sales tax. It is a recreational bond that is for 2 different projects. It's a recreational bond that is going to build a brand new swimming pool, and it is also going to be for the use of ball diamonds. Okay, we've really had overwhelming success in promoting this and getting this initiative out before our voters in our community, and we've seen a lot of success with our surveys and things. But what I would like to talk on tonight is a few talking points that I think a lot of the questions we're getting on, and that's on the ball diamond. I want to start right there. People are asking, why are we combining a swimming pool with a ball diamond? And there's really 3 main talking points we've chosen when we're handling that. Number 1 talking point is we did not want to pit 2 entities in McCook together. We have major supporters for a new pool. We have major supporters for new ball diamonds or upgraded facility of ball diamonds, and we felt like it was in the best interest not to divide and split our community. We also knew that the cost of issuance of the bonds would be doubled if we went through 2 separate ballot questions, and could be confusing to the voters, but also the cost of issuance of that. And then the last thing I would like to touch on is the ball diamond project The half-cent sales tax would produce roughly over the 20-year period, $12 million, of which the first portion of that would pay for the swimming pool, and the second and remaining would pay for for the recreational bond for ballparks. We currently, as we sit right now, have in-kind donations of upwards of $6 million. It was really hard to walk away from $6 million pledge and donation and say we're not ready for that yet. And so we felt like the time was right to combine these two entities and put them together in one ballot question. So if, I see I got red flagged already, there's going to be more fundraising and more dollars need to be generated in order to do a brand new ball diamond complex. If those dollars end up not being raised, the recreational bond is written that all of those monies can then be used to update and fix up our current facilities, which would include JC Complex and Felling Field. So I've been read, so I'm going to pause.
All right, 2 questions, about 3 minutes to answer each one of those on the panel.
Thanks, Jeff. Talk about your due diligence in the economic impact of this project. Go ahead.
Well, being that guy that ran Little League baseball and softball tournaments in town for years, the due diligence, the economic development is huge. And I don't have that data in front of me, but we have studies of every tournament. When you bring in 8 teams, the financial impact is overwhelming to the community. You as a business owner know Saturday when there's a baseball tournament in town, you can't get in your place. You can't get in your place anyway most days, but it is overwhelming for the community in hotels, restaurants, food, so the economic development's huge. Swimming pool, the economic development's huge from the standpoint, we were shut down this year, and we have no ability to operate the current pool as it is. And so we lost a lot of dollars to Oberlin, to Colby, to some of the area pools from people leaving. And the economic impact, being a service industry working for the schools, it's hard to hire. It's hard to hire and bring families in when we don't have swimming pool for their families, and we don't have ball diamonds. That we do have ball diamonds, but we don't have them at the rate we need to be for running a college, softball, baseball, high school, softball, Legion, and all of our youth activities. So.
Well, you might have already addressed this a bit, but what about the need for additional ball diamonds? We hear a lot. We don't have a swimming pool right now,
Correct.
But we do have ball diamonds.
We don't have a swimming pool. Our swimming pool has got into a state, and there's been a swimming pool committee and a lot of work from the city for a lot of years, but we ended up in the state that we are, that the facility is obviously closed. Our ballparks, albeit they're open, they're in a state that needs some drastic repairs. If you went up there, we have some of our outfield fences being held together by duct tape. And so what I guess I would attest the biggest to that is, do we have a need for additional space? Yes. Since the JC complex was built years ago, it was built as a recreational park. McCook High School added softball, McCook Community College added baseball and softball, and there's so many more traveling teams than there ever were in those facilities, and we have no practice space. That's what led this main discussion of ball diamonds 3-4 years ago, was practice space. So then when you start looking at the state of this and you start thinking, okay, if we just put together a swimming pool initiative and it passes, then we're looking at 10 years from now till we can go back to the voters with another half-cent sales tax to start thinking about ball diamonds. We know where our pool ended up by not getting something done earlier. We'd be right in that same position with ballparks 10 years from now. So it made a lot of sense to bring these recreational bonds together to improve all facilities at one bold swoop.
You got a minute
minutes to close. So a lot of hard work and effort have gone on into this, and I think another thing, a talking point I would like to make is the swimming pool has had a committee for a long time, and we have those pictures and we have the plans and designs narrowed down, and that was at the forefront of the media quite a bit. The ball diamond stuff was going on because it was began by private people. It was began by some people wanting to donate money. But make no mistake that when those meetings have been transpired over the course of the last 3 to 4 years, the city, the schools, the community college, the American Legion program, all the traveling softball and all the traveling baseball people were involved in that. There was great time and effort and thought process to laying out that project. And so I think we've gotten a little bit of, if you want to say, negativity that people didn't know about that, and at the end of the day, it wasn't in the public because it was a private project that then came forth to the city. And I think the biggest thing is, when we were looking at joining these and the passage of these, is it's pretty hard to walk away in the community of McCook when somebody's willing to say, here's $6 million, go dream. And so by passage of this, we can add the half-cent sales tax dollars along with their money, and we still got work to do. We recognize that, but then we can still go out and finish selling that dream, and in a couple years, we're going to see kids back up at the top of the hill by the college swimming, and we're going to see a brand-new gorgeous ballpark that's going to last for our community for longer than even JC's has, and that's probably well over 50 years old already. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jeff Gross, talking about the half-cent sales tax that you'll be able to vote for on Election Day. All right, let's get our candidates started here. Up first, the Nebraska Legislature, District 38, Dave Merman, if you would come on up. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. I am privileged to, with redistricting, to represent southwest Nebraska, southern southwest Nebraska. District changed a little bit. I was, for the most part, southern Nebraska, U-shape around Hastings and Kearney, now extended to the south, further to the west, so privileged to be here. The people of this area, a lot of small towns, a lot of conservative people, that the citizens are interested in the same type of issues as what the district was before redistricting. When I ran 4 years ago, I ran on number one issue, returning our country to the Christian family values it was founded on, and the number two issue was lowering taxes, especially property taxes. And I think we've made some progress, especially in the second part of the reasons I ran in property tax relief. 2 years ago, my personal priority was the bill that allowed the deduction of 25% of property taxes paid off of your state income tax bill. So very happy to get that done. And then a year ago, my personal priority was putting an accelerator on that so that now in 2022, actually 30% of your property taxes paid to your K-12 education districts, I should say to the K-12 education, I should have said that on the first part also, that will be, you are allowed to credit that off of your income tax. And by the way, if you don't pay that much income tax, which is very possible because property taxes are so high, you will get a check back from the government for that amount up to 30% of your property tax bill. As far as Christian family values, we weren't able to pass a trigger bill. We were, I think, 2 votes short of doing that in the last session. There's also religious freedom bills that we need to get passed, and looking forward to be able to do that in the next 4 years.
Great. All right, a couple of questions from the panel.
Senator,
It's on.
it's on? Okay. Senator, so I have something to do with the hospital here, and I've talked a lot with Valmont, and I've heard stories about Parker. And I mentioned those three entities because they have quite a large workforce. All three are struggling to staff, right? And staff nearly as much as they'd like to be able to. Is there anything you believe the state government can do to attract and retain workers throughout the state?
Well, the biggest thing we can do is do everything possible to make it attractive for workers to, first of all, family members, graduating high school or college students to stay in the state, and then to attract especially young people, but people of all ages to the state, especially the workforce, like you alluded to. So the biggest thing is our tax policy. I think if we can keep our taxes as low as possible, that will attract people to the state. We have so many things that to be proud of in this state. We have the wide open spaces, the relatively good schools compared to the rest of the country, most of the rest of the country, and good family life and small town life, which especially with COVID is very attractive to people from out of state. So, in the last census, I was glad to see that our state at least retained its population. We didn't lose population like we really feared that we would, especially in the rural areas. And most of the rural areas actually retained their population, maintained population. But another thing we can do with the federal money that's being shoveled out of Washington. By the way, I don't agree with all the spending out of Washington, but we've got the money, so we need to spend it wisely. And I think true infrastructure is a good thing, and that includes broadband. And so many jobs now you can work from home, or at least more often stay at home and work. And with broadband expansion, I think that will allow more of that. And then also, like I said, true infrastructure, roads, bridges, ports, airports, all those kinds of things. I'm not sure if I'm using quite the right term for it, but a railroad port that's being proposed for not too far away, North Platte, and I think one in Omaha also. All those kinds of things will help our, especially greater Nebraska grow, being out in North Platte.
What specific legislation would you introduce or prioritize if you were elected or re-elected?
I haven't decided specifically on what I will prioritize in the next session. I'm looking at some different things. I think especially if the election goes reasonably well for conservatives, I will have a good chance of having a higher position on the Education Committee. So there's education priorities there that I would like to see through, advanced out of committee. Parents have been motivated in the last year or two because they've, one big reason is they have seen what's being taught to our students remotely, since a lot of students were home part-time remotely. So parents have been inspired to get more involved with the children's education. We need to keep comprehensive sex education out of our schools, and critical race theory. Critical race theory, of course, depends on your definition, but the true definition of critical race theory is that white people are the oppressors and everyone else is the oppressed, and that's true racism, so we need to keep that out of our schools. I'm also looking at bills for religious freedom in healthcare. I'm also on the Health and Human Services Committee. So we need to assure people that, especially students that are going into the medical field, that they won't be compelled or forced to take part in medical procedures that they don't agree with, such as abortion, sex change operations, and euthanasia. So that's another priority I'm looking at. If I do move to, especially if I do move to chair of the Education Committee, most likely I would also be on the Revenue Committee. And by the way, that was my first choice when I got into the legislature, is Revenue Committee, well, Education Committee and then Revenue Committee. No new senators got on the Revenue Committee when I first went in. So as Education Chairman, I would probably move to the Revenue Committee, and possibly even if I'm not Education Chairman. But I really want to look at other methods for fairer funding of schools and to lower our property taxes. Even though we've made some progress in the last couple of years with valuations going up, we still have a long ways to go with property tax relief.
All right, thank you. You have 1 minute to close if you want to.
Okay, I guess I'm kind of new to this area, so I could introduce myself a little bit. I'm a farmer, former dairy farmer till 2016. Have 3 children. Our daughter lives in Fort Worth, Texas, has our 5 grandchildren. Her and her husband have our 5 grandchildren. Her husband works for Christian Medical and Dental Association, so that gives me a little bit of insight into medical care and religious freedom. They homeschool our 5 grandkids. Middle child is Whitney. She's totally disabled in a wheelchair, doesn't talk. And then our youngest is a son, Chase, and he has an internet business, and very proud of the family, and blessed to have that family, and blessed to be a state senator, something I've always looked forward to. Even in college, I did minor in political science. As a dairy farmer, I didn't have time until I quit that business, and I'm happy to represent the district right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Berman, of course, running for Nebraska State Legislature, District 38. Tyler Capel is the other one that's running, and he's not able to be here this evening. Moving on to the Nebraska State Board of Education, District 7. Robin Stevens. Robin Stevens will come up, and he will talk about his hopes here for running on November 8th.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you to High Plains Radio. It's very nice that you have this. It's just been 8 years ago I was down here, so it's great to be back. Obviously, I spend a lot of time in McCook throughout. Why does a person run for the State Board of Education? Well, it better be for one reason. It's the kids, and if you're not in it for the kids, then you shouldn't be in it. I'm a 40-year educator, been a teacher and a coach. I've been a principal, I've been an assistant principal, and I've been a superintendent for 13 years. Most of those years were in District 7. As we all know, problems are going to happen. And when you're a coach, you find out that problems are going to happen. When you're a superintendent, you find out problems are going to happen. So the thing that I've prided myself in is the fact that over those 40 years of being in education, I have found good solutions to problems. And that's why I think I'm a really good candidate, and have been a good candidate, have been a good person for the State Board of Education. But if we don't believe that kids are our future, I look over here and it's great to see youngsters here being part of this, because that's what this is all about. No discussion would be complete as far as my life is concerned unless I visited a little bit about my family. I have a wonderful wife of, I better be careful here, but almost 50 years now. I have 2 wonderful daughters, and best of all and maybe one of the main reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing is because of those grandkids that we have. Those of you who are grandparents know what that's all about. But again, before I move on here to our question and answers, I just want to say that the most important thing that I have and that a person better have if they're going to be in the field of education is a true love for kids.
All right, we'll go to our first question.
Okay, so what do you believe should be included in the health education standard?
Thank you, Sherry. It's good to see you again. We have found out, if nothing else, that we better stay out of it. So that should be, and we talk about Nebraska being a state of local control. And if we found out nothing from all the controversy that came out from those health standards or the proposal of those health standards, we found out that they should come from the school district. They should come from your local boards, your local administration. Obviously, parents should be involved in that as well. So, but let me also emphasize that September of 2021, health standards were stopped. Now, I know that there are people who want to continue to push that they're coming back and that sort of thing. Well, all I can tell you is as long as I'm on that board, they're not going to come back. There is no reason for them to. If we haven't learned our lesson, then I'm not as smart as I thought I was. So we have to rely on state board, the local control, our school boards, our parents, our administrators to develop the health standards.
Robin, would love to hear your thoughts on the teacher shortage, what you think some potential solutions that could be, especially as it pertains to rural Nebraska and the assets that we have here. What is the draw for a teacher in southwest Nebraska?
Tyler, right? Yes. Thank you for that. And there are two major issues that I see that we have right now that we must tackle, and one of them is the teacher shortage. From a state board perspective, what we must do and what we are doing is look at the certification process. What are some things then that are barriers that we have in our certification process? One of them is a thing called, and if you folks, if any of you are educators, you know that there's a competency test called Praxis. And this has been a huge barrier from the standpoint of new teachers, of recruiting new teachers. The competency test, Praxis, many times does not show whether that child, that I call them children now, but they're college-age kids, if they are capable of being teachers. That Praxis is a real barrier. Other things that we can do from a state board standpoint, we can have reciprocity with our surrounding states. That's one of the things that has been really kind of a barrier. We get a little proprietary on that. We think we're doing it best. So if Colorado can't match up to the Nebraska standards, well, we don't want them. Well, we have to look at that and see if that's truly a barrier to our teacher shortage. Building our own, growing our own. If we look at many of our schools, paraeducators are great possibility for educators, or to become true educators in the classroom, not just being in the classroom to assist a teacher. So I think that's really an important thing as well. Another thing that comes to my mind is we must do a better job of marketing who we are. I've been in education for 40 years. It's been a great profession for me. But sometimes, and my wife, by the way, was in it for 36 years, but sometimes we're our own worst enemies there. And are we putting our best foot forward and encouraging our students that are in the classroom to get involved in education? It's a great profession, something that I'm just, like I said, has been very, very important to me and has been very, very important to my wife as well. So marketing, that's another thing that I think that we can do to increase people wanting to get into the field. Another area, and tell me what the red flag means.
30 seconds.
I got 30 seconds. We've got great teachers. We need to do everything we can to keep and retain those great teachers. One last thing, please give it to me.
You get a minute's close.
Okay, all right. I'll make sure I come back to that. Oh, we're already there?
Yep.
Okay. Well, then I'll finish up with this.
Go for it.
I'm talking now about retaining the great teachers that we currently have. A lot of people say, well, it's all about money. And I'm not trying to say that it's not about money. But what teachers really want is they want to have a voice in the decision-making process, and they want that voice to be respected. That's the number one thing that our good teachers want to have. And then in closing, let me just say, it is all about the kids. And that's the way I've been for 40 years. That's the way I'm going to be for the rest of my life.
All right. Thank you. Very good. And also, Elizabeth is, I believe, not here this evening, that's running also. University of Nebraska Board of Regents is up next, District 7. Up first, we have Kathy Wilmot.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm from Beaver City. I've lived there all my life, pretty much. My husband, Wes, we raised 3 adult children. We have 10 grandchildren, and that probably begins to explain why this race is so important to me. I come from a farming background. My mother was a teacher, and so education was important. I've been a teacher in our public classrooms. I have been an administrator working with physically and mentally challenged individuals, and also with Kansas Department of Corrections at the prison in Norton. I commuted across, and I've also been on the State Board of Education. I served 8 years in representing Western Nebraska. During that time, I fought for local control, academic education, all the things that are important to us. I am running because I am for education, not indoctrination. We have CRT that's occurring on our university campuses. That needs to stop. I also believe that we need to be preparing our students for success. I want them to have a real education so they can go out, be successful in the profession that they have chosen. Also, I want to make sure that there's more opportunities so our youth stays home, so they can come back here, make a living, raise their families. And also, it's about the money. We need transparency and accountability for the large amount of money that is spent at our university. Is it spent for things that are truly necessary? Or perhaps with our hard-earned dollars, there's better ways to spend that money, or perhaps it doesn't need to be spent. So those are things that are important to me, and that's why I'm in this race.
Two questions.
You mentioned you're against indoctrination. I think that's pretty good. What can you specifically do though in the position of a regent to ensure that students wouldn't be punished for their own personal views in certain classrooms?
Well, for one thing, the Board of Regents is the governance board. And as that, you set policy, which is a little bit like setting the sail on the sailboat, the direction that you want to see that facility to go. And through policy, then, the administrators, the individuals working there have a responsibility to fulfill those policies and carry out the mission of the board. And those are the places that I would begin to set the direction and make sure that students are treated equally, no matter who they are. You know, we had instances, I know in 2017, that came to light with a student that was harassed by professors, even though she had permission to go out and try to get membership for a conservative group. And she actually had to be removed from campus under the help of the security for her own safety. Those are things that shouldn't be happening at our university. They're there for an education. They borrow the money, they go in debt, they put in, I know, I was a graduate of the university or system at Kearney, and you put in a lot of time because there's something you have, a dream of being in your life. And so that's what we need to do with our university, with the policy, make sure that those students are respected and treated correctly and that they get the education that they're working toward.
Second question.
Do you believe that the current leadership at the university is meeting the needs of the students and the population of Nebraska? Why or why not?
Well, I haven't been there as a Board of Regents. I haven't been in a position of evaluating them. I do know that, for example, President Carter has a tremendous background with our military and things. I would think with all of the experience that he's had, the security issues, et cetera, I would think that he would only want the very best for our students. And as we work together as a board and also as the administration of the facility, if we have differences of opinion in policy and where the university should be headed, hopefully we can work that out. And that's what I want to do. The times that I've worked together with individuals, I know that it's been important to come to an understanding. And so, as far as evaluating the staff, that's not something that I've ever been about at this point. So I think they're doing a good job so far, and we'll find out. Okay. Well, this race is very important because the university is training our teachers that are coming to the classroom, our future business leaders, our policy setters. So they have a great impact on what we are going to have leading our nation, leading our classrooms in the future. They're touching all of our children, all of our grandchildren. The future of our nation and our state rests heavily on the training and the education that is coming from our university system. I'm too old to fight in the military to protect my country, but this is something that I can do. I am a conservative individual. I have a strong voice. Not only that, having worked over 20 years in the prison system, I can guarantee you I know how to stand up for what's right. I know how not to compromise my values. And I know that when I was on the State Board of Education, when I promised my constituents what I was going to be standing for, every one of my votes did that. And I make that promise to you, and I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy Wilmot, University of Nebraska of Regents District 7. Matt Williams is also running, and he is not here this evening. Moving on to Nebraska Public Power District, Subdivision 4. We have Bill Hoyt. He is running, and you'll be able to have a chance to vote for him on November 8th, and he'll be up here at the podium next.
Good evening. My name is Bill Hoyt. I have been your Nebraska Public Power Director since ran and was elected in 2016. My primary focus has always been reliability, affordability, safety, and transparency. Before I was elected, NPPD had frequent rate increases. Since I've been on the board, we have had 0 rate increases. In fact, we have returned over $250 million back to you, our ratepayers, which effectively lowered your electric bills by 10%. We are nationally recognized for reliability. Our safety record has improved where Cooper, our nuclear power plant, is one of the top-rated facilities today. We live stream and we archive our meetings, so everything, which of course improved our transparency dramatically. Obviously, I haven't done all this alone, but from the very beginning, I have provided leadership through example. reducing spending by carpooling with other directors, rather than exploiting the opportunity for company plane rides, which was what had been happening before I got on the board. That saves the district only about $10,000 or $15,000 a year, but more importantly, it has set the tone for the other directors to follow. Thank you.
All right. Ready for our first question?
In your write-up, you mentioned the annual review process that you got put in place in order to look at the goal for 2050 to be net carbon neutral. Maybe help me understand, that review process. Is it going to look at certain goals annually that you already have established? How are you going to know, say, 5 years from now that you're either on track or not on track and that maybe we need to abandon said goal?
Well, the simple version of the issue is that there is no pathway forward to net neutral that maintains reliability and affordability. The metrics that I got in place was actually measured that says, okay, here's where we're at on our, our rate schedule. Here's where we're at in our reliability rankings, all those kinds of measurements. There's a whole paragraph there. I'm having trouble recalling that paragraph at the moment, but that's essentially what it does. It just said, okay, we have to measure that, and every year they go back and revisit that. If it's not going to meet if it can't maintain reliability and affordability and aim toward that goal, then that goal has to be rolled back.
So talk a little bit about Gerald Gentleman and, how many people it employs up there. How important is that facility to MPPD board?
Gerald Gentleman is kind of our crown jewel, if you will. It is what keeps us in the reliability and affordability because it is a major dispatchable resource. In other words, when everything we use in Nebraska, we sell out onto the grid, or we buy from the grid. Everything we generate, we sell out onto the grid. It's market driven. We buy low, sell high. That's the reason we can keep those rates down. Gerald Gentleman is what, currently there's a lot of wind power that's operating within our grid, and Gerald Gentleman can follow that load. In other words, when the wind dies back, it can ramp up and fill that gap. And it employs about 200 people, I believe, there, and which, of course, out of Sutherland, that's a substantial amount in that neighborhood. But a lot of the money, that $250 million, a lot of that actually came because of Gerald Gentleman.
Very good. Okay, you've got 1 minute to close.
Okay. MPPD management encouraged the net neutral by 2050. Even though I strongly opposed it, it did pass. And when I saw that it was going to pass, it became obvious, and so I put those protections in place for Gerald Gentleman because it is what gives us reliability and affordability. If we have reliability and affordability, everything else works. If you don't have reliability and affordability, nothing else will work. That's an oversimplification, but that's just the way it is. Thanks.
Thank you. Bill Hoyt, of course, running for Nebraska Public Power District Division 4. Now, David Gale is also running, but he is not here this evening. Moving on to the Middle Republican Natural Resource District. I like to just call it the NRD. It's much easier. Anyway, there is the only contested race we have is District 3. And first this evening, I believe we have Shane Rippon Shane Rippon, you want to come up and tell folks about why you're running?
Brian, thank you, and thank you to KICX for doing this. It's been educational to be here listening to other people talk, so I appreciate the opportunity. I'm running for re-election for the Middle Republican NRD Board. A little bit of background, I grew up, graduated from Culberson High School, graduated from college at the eastern part of the state, moved back here to take over the family farm, third generation family farm. Been here since then. I have a wife at home and two beautiful daughters, so when Brian got a hold of me, I was hoping we'd be playing volleyball tonight in the sub-district finals, but as things took a turn last night, we didn't make it there. But as I said, I appreciate being here. The Middle Republican is something that impacts me, on a personal level. When I decided to run, it was something that I knew was out there, that I learned a lot since I've been on that board. So there's a lot of complex issues that we deal with, and there's challenges that face us on the road ahead.
All right, very good. First question from the panel.
Okay, so in District 4, there's nobody running. What can be done to get people involved and educated about what the NRD does and the need for having good representation in all areas?
Good question. When I first got on the board, it was an at-large district. So, we had overabundance of people that could run or wanted to run because, like I said, it was a huge district. As time has changed, we've had to redistrict, certain places, so we weren't an at-large district, which we felt there was more representation from certain areas. What can be done? We've talked about this. If I asked everybody to hear what the NRD does, I would say that maybe a half a dozen people would maybe know what they do. So we have a diverse board with the members that we do have right now with small business owners, with farmers, with managers, with ranchers. So what could be done to get other people to run? Probably more word of mouth. As I said, there's going to be some huge issues that are going to be affecting, not only, it's not just a rural issue, and it's not only a farmer rancher issue, it is affecting everybody with water. So what could be done? I would, and to directly answer your question, I would have to say, people need to become aware of what the NRDs do. They need to, come up to a meeting possibly, or talk to members that are on the board. If it's something that they feel maybe is not in their wheelhouse to be a part of a board like that, I would say they're probably wrong. Because, the opinions that we need to have on boards, such as this, vary. Doesn't matter what your occupation or what your thoughts are, with natural resources.
All right, one more question.
Shane, we know water is a very precious resource, and not a lot of it this year came from from the sky. But we're looking at dry rivers and lakes that are super low. What does it look like in the coming years, and how does that impact communities like McCook?
Well, obviously the drought that happened this year is not just a drought from this year. This has been a process that has happened over the course of the last, 2 or 3 years. We went through this in 2012, and, Swanson Reservoir, just for a visual, everybody could drive by that and see how low Swanson Reservoir was. Over the course of time, it did come back, If the skies would open tomorrow and would start raining, obviously it would cure all of our problems. The only thing that we can do, and right now, is manage, what resources that we have here. Obviously, if people say, well, we want to shut off all the irrigation wells, that might be fine in the realm of that side of thinking, but then where's our food going to come from? Where's our industry going to come from? Where's our beef? Everything like that. So as it stands right now, we can make cutbacks to what we're doing. And there was an augmentation project that was put in before I was on the board that obviously if we do not meet compact with Kansas, we can run that. But as far as directly, what we can do to impact our streams is, maybe some cutbacks and pray for rain. So.
Good. All right, got 1 minute to close.
Okay. First of all, or lastly, I guess I would just like to thank everybody here. I would encourage you, to maybe look in and see what these natural resources do, because even coming from that background, it was educational for me. I would encourage you to talk to the people that represent you. As I said, I'm seeking another term. The constituents that have elected me, they've entrusted me with a voice at the table that obviously, they want to represent them. So I would just encourage you to drop by, up at Curtis where our building's at, and if you have any questions, or reach out to a board member, I think they would be happy to answer your questions for you.
Great. Thank you, Shane Rippon, of course, running for NRD District 3. Also, Bill Barger is running for District 3, and he'll come up to talk about that.
Well, thank you for allowing me to appear tonight and express my own opinion on some of this stuff. I'm Bill Barger. I've been a farmer and rancher all my life. I think it's time that this NRD board has some common sense. Most of you are not aware even what the NRD does, but it allocates all the groundwater in this area, and we have allocations of 12 inches a year. Over a 5-year period, if you have excess water, you can carry 12 more on, so you have 72 inches for 5 years. Now, the state of Nebraska contributes, and so does the local NRDs, when they buy permanent water rights from individuals. You would think that we would get a credit of what that annual allocation is forever. We do not. They go out and pay $2,500 an acre, and they have a credit that a stream might run within a couple of years. And that has to stop. You can't throw away money like that. All you're doing is taking irrigated ground into dry land ground, so you're raising up the taxes on everybody. And another thing I would like to see is a lot more transparency in the NRD's meetings. The prior manager, they discussed about everything, and if they voted on buying somebody's permanent water rights or something, they voted on it at the meeting. And another thing I've asked the NRDs for the last 2 months, I live 10 miles west of Palisade. That Frenchman River is bone dry. The canal system has got a foot of water in it. Where did that water come from? They tell me the president of the NRD or the chairman says, well, maybe they don't have the gates shut. That's a bunch of baloney. We're going to be pumping water out of Lincoln County for Kansas while somebody does something as stupid as that.
All right, very good. Ready for a couple questions.
So in what ways can and should the NRD help producers stay within their water limits and avoid penalties?
Well, since it's been so dry the last couple of years, they're going to have what they probably call a compact collier this year, where you can only use 12 inches of water and that's it. Otherwise, you could use any amount of your allocation over a 5-year period. But when it's dry as what it is, that's probably going to happen.
All right.
Do what now?
Summer 2023, there'll be a collier?
Yeah, well, they haven't came right out and said that, but chances are as dry as everything is. If you use more than the 12 inches, then the first inch or two, they just take 1 or 2 extra inches off your allocation. But if you use more than that, then it becomes like 3 or 4 inches.
Do you know if Nebraska, obviously we have a lot of fresh water sitting on an aquifer. Is that a net benefit to our state right now? And
We're the one state in the nation that has the biggest aquifer in the whole nation.
Is that an asset to us, and are we managing that properly?
Oh, absolutely. We wouldn't be where we are without irrigation. We're the most highly irrigated state in the nation.
All right, you got 1 minute to close. Anything else?
Well, I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. I've went to probably about every monthly meeting for the last 15 years. And I'm from the outside looking in. I think that there needs to be more common sense in this. I think they need to quit spending so many dollars on frugal things.
It's William Barger running the course for NRD District 3. On to the Red Willow County Sheriff's Office race. Kevin Darling, he will be coming up to the podium next.
Good evening. Thank you guys for this. Thank you for all attending. I am Kevin Darling. The reason I'm running for sheriff, I've been in McCook for quite some time, as most of you know. In 1981, I went into the military. I served in the military. When I got out, I went right into law enforcement in Lincoln County. Worked there for a couple of years and then came down to McCook in '86. And I've been in McCook since then. Worked patrol, worked traffic, was a sergeant since 2012, and the senior sergeant, which without a lieutenant's position, that's kind of what I did. I'm running because I think the county deserves the service that they're not getting. We work really hard in the city to provide for everybody to respond in a fair and equitable manner, and I don't think that's happening in the county. And my hope is to change that. The other thing, and Bill and I have talked about this, you know, we've been in public service for a long time, and once you're in it, you're not in it to make a lot of money. You're in it because of the service you provide. You know, and to me, you know, the guys from the school, I think I get more out of my time at the school zones than I do writing tickets. You know, my response with the kids is, it makes my day every day. That's our hope in the future. You educators know that. That's kind of why I'm doing this. I think it's a little bit different approach to law enforcement. And there's more to the county sheriff's position than just the law enforcement side of it.
Okay, a couple of questions.
So I could be incorrect here, but I think there's maybe a chance that there's not a whole lot of staff in place currently. When you would take over, you probably would need to hire some folks.
Everybody.
Right, and I think also from a jailer standpoint, even with, you know, like I think the state's currently paying $28 an hour to walk in off the street and start handling prisoners. What do you see that you're going to need to do in order to attract and retain jailers and maybe get a few deputies around here?
Well, along that lines, there's some incentives now through the legislature for law enforcement. There's the possibility, the training center is now doing monthly reciprocity trainings for out-of-state officers, offering them to come into the state. So it's far less difficult to be hired on in law enforcement here. So they're making that available. And we have places like Colorado. My son is a sergeant in Commerce City and Denver. And they're losing people by the droves. So there's opportunity there, and the training center has seen that opportunity. So with the reciprocity training, they offer those classes once a month. That'll help get them here. The other side of that is we've got to promote our area. I mean, it's not just, sounds cliche, it's not just a job. This is a place to raise a family. Far different than what you see in Colorado with all their issues and things like that. And it's not big city. You know, most cops have a thing with guns and hunting and fishing and things like that. We have a huge opportunity out here. And things like golf and with the new ballparks and the swimming pools, things for their kids. And I think that's vital. So that's a hope. And I've been doing this long enough. I've got a few contacts around. I'm very hopeful to add staff, not only to the jail, but to the sheriff's department itself, because we're going to have to hit the ground running. Okay?
All right, one more question.
So once you get fully staffed,
Yeah.
what do you say is the most pressing issue for law enforcement in Red Willow County?
Well, meth is always the biggest problem. We work with that particular demographic all the time. That sucks up a lot of man hours. We hear with our radio compatibility now from the police department, we hear what the sheriff's department's doing. We know, they're going out on cattle calls, but that's not a law enforcement function, but it is. I mean, like everything else, who are they going to call when they don't know who else to call? They call law enforcement. So it's all about service. Within that question, what's the biggest problem? Of course, dealing with the people that have drug addictions and alcohol issues and things like that, we're not fixing that. We need to get an approach that fixes that before we're dealing with it. And I think it goes clear back to the kids. I mean, I know there's DARE in the school and there's some people that have spoken against that and whatnot, but it has to start someplace. And I think you start with respect with the kids. Everybody's got to have respect for each other as they grow up. And then I think those issues become less. They're never going to go away. People are people. We deal with, we've got a lot of times we're dealing with people with mental health issues. And I think that's a training issue that we're doing more of now. And just, like I said, my thought process of a different approach is I don't fix anything with a ticket, but if I can help this person get to a place where they can help themselves, that's more important. Then I've done more to, tickets don't fix anything, And I don't want, as I've said before, I don't want people to be afraid of me because of my position. I want to be approachable because I don't know everything. I don't know your standpoint, and I need to hear that. So I want people to have an opportunity to talk to me. Okay?
You've got 1 minute to close.
I guess I appreciate all the support that I've gotten so far. I want to say thank you. I hope I continue to earn that justification. I want you to be happy with the service that I provide, and I will do everything that I can to make that happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Kevin Darling, of course, running for Red Willow County Sheriff, and Jaden Carter, who is not here. Moving on to McCook School Board. Voters will be asked to choose 3 for a 4-year term. Voters will be asked to choose for up to those 3, and we're going to start this evening with Rhonda Graff from McCook School Board. Rhonda, you're first.
Oh, my opening. Okay. My name is Rhonda Graff, and why I am running for school board, as hopefully some of you know, I write a weekly column that the Gazette so graciously prints for me, and on a regular basis, I implore people to get involved. And so whether it's doing projects, just attending events, but I felt it was finally time of me telling people to do things and for me to step up and to run for school board. And I think, we've already touched upon it tonight that, we're not moving forward if we do not have productive young people coming, as part of our community in the future. So that's the short answer for why I'm running. When I moved here in 1995, my mother-in-law was on the school board at that point, and I just remember watching in awe at what she was doing. That she was making an impact in the community. She was making an impact elsewhere too, as well, starting recycling and such. But one of the things that hit home that she said, this was pre-digital, so I'm gonna age myself. She would get to a school board meeting, and the fellow school board members Some of them would be cracking the envelope. So they were not prepared at all for that meeting. And so that's something I think, and so she was always prepared. She could argue anyone under the table. And so I learned from that, and I think that's something that I have. I have that flexibility in my schedule, and I have that ability to listen to others, that I want to be prepared and listen to others if I do get on the McCook School Board.
Very good. First question.
Rhonda, we do a pretty good job in our schools, in terms of metrics of knowing how we're doing with standardized testing. But there's a whole lot of success that doesn't show up on a test. And I want to know, what are your metrics for a successful student when they graduate from the McCook Public Schools?
I think a student who can think for themselves would probably be the biggest measure. We shouldn't be telling the kids what to think. We should be teaching them how to think. And I don't think that always reflects on the test. I'm not arguing against ACTs. I mean, you can walk into that high school and you can see the posters that they have there. My kids are up there on that poster. I've also got kids who are not on those posters. And so I don't think that that's the best measurement. I think that you have to have kids who are going to be productive, members of the community. I think we have to show them respect and demand respect of them. And so, like I said, I don't believe that the testing is the answer at all. We've seen that during COVID, that a lot of the colleges went away from it because you just weren't able to take, you weren't able to take the ACT. And so they realized that just taking those tests is not the best way to measure what is going to be a good student. And so I think you have to look at other avenues. I think we need to stop focusing on just sending kids to four-year schools. That if that's our answer, is the how many kids have got into the four-year schools, I don't think that's a great measurement. We need to be, shouting from the rooftops, those that are going into our service industries, and really celebrating those kids. We need to celebrate the kids, that are getting out there and being productive members of our community. One of the biggest disservices we do is tell every kid that he needs to go to college, and kudos to those that graduate and have a job that they can pay down that debt that we were talking about earlier, or the ones that go straight into work. It's those ones that we say, you have to go to school, and they come out with debt that they're paying on for the rest of their lives. That's just something they're going to fight for the rest of their lives. So.
Kind of answered my question already a little bit, but so like last week I went and attended a session at a conference on labor shortages in the U.S. and basically the numbers show, if you look at it many different ways, that we're still about 5 million workers underemployed in America based on trends. And the interesting thing is that when you look at who's not employed or the jobs that are available, the vast majority of those jobs are high school diploma and not four-year degree positions. And so you just kind of talked about that, but do you have some specifics about how you would emphasize trade programs so that maybe we can truthfully do something about this?
Oh, golly, we don't have enough time tonight. That's a conversation that comes up regularly. We've talked about high demand scholarships in another discussion. Really working with, number one, the businesses that we already have here, whether it's the hospital, that we have the health careers, working with Valmont to get people into welding programs, but really, just really connecting the businesses that we already have, and working with the students to make that connection and seeing if that spark is there. I know a certain architect here in town who would love to have an architect, take over because he'd like to retire. But when those kids start school, they may start college going, I want to be an architect. Well, about 2 days in, and trust me, I know this from experience with my own son, he realized he didn't want to be an architect. They really need to get in there and see, is this something that they want to do? They need to have those experiences. And I think that's just bringing, the school, exposing them, with the businesses, and even taking it a step further. I think the school is doing a great job. They're really exploring different avenues, and I think we can just keep taking it to the next level of, woodworking. we need carpenters. I mean, just, anybody that can find a carpenter, on short notice, any of these service industries, really getting those kids at a young age, they don't need to. They can come out of school and get jobs. And so I think, the sooner that we can expose those kids to those opportunities, the better, to see if that is a good fit. And maybe they'll realize right then, no. Maybe it's that they want to start their own business. We can focus more on the entrepreneurial programs in town and lift those up, of getting those kids. If you're not going to work for somebody, maybe you could start your own business. So there's a lot of different opportunities that we could pursue.
Great.
A minute to close. Okay. I do just ask for vote. Like I said, this community has given a lot to my family, and this is a way for me to give back to the community. I think this is it's a service. This doing community service and being a community. That's where I spend a lot of my time, is helping the community. They've given a lot to me, and I think this is my way of giving back to the community. So it's pretty simple. I like to think I listen, hopefully well, more than I talk. I struggle with that. I will freely admit that, but I do hope that I'm approachable, and that people would want to come to me with their ideas, and I'd be open to listen. So do please, I would appreciate everyone's vote. Thank you.
All right, moving on from McCook School Board, Charlie McPherson.
I am happy to be here tonight. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Charlie McPherson, running for the school board. The reason I chose to go after this role is for my own kids and the kids in the community. That's a very important role for us as current leaders, to help form and shape our up-and-coming leaders for the future. It's very important to me and my family that we are able to show them and help guide and mold them with what they decide in the future. I also feel that I do bring a little bit different perspective to this position, as we do have a child on the spectrum, and we've been exposed and worked with the educators and administrators in the school systems on individual educational plans, IEPs, and some of the things that go along with that. Just feel it's a good opportunity to help get our kids, making sure that they are equipped for wherever their life takes them in the future, whether it is college or it's a trade area or something else.
What specific issues do you feel the district needs to address in its academic programs and offerings, and what changes would you recommend?
It's hard to be kind of redundant in this area, because it kind of stems off of some of the things Rhonda already pointed out. I think we could do a better job within our community. I think we have a really good start with exposing our kids in the school system with other career opportunities outside of a traditional college 4-year school. I know they've started to implement Bison Days and some other various opportunities, but I think we could do a little bit better in those areas to expose them, whether it's through clubs within the schools or the possibility of doing local internship programs with companies here, just to get better exposure and let them see what's out there and let them make a decision for themselves on what they want to do in the future.
Charlie, we've talked a lot about staffing shortages. When it comes to teachers and staff, also you have another unique perspective being the MEDC director, what are the assets in Southwest Nebraska that make this a great place to be a teacher, to be an educator, to live and raise a family here?
We have a very unique and great community that is appealing to individuals looking to come into our community with their families. I think we have the options to explore other opportunities to help retain and attract in those areas. Again, by exploring different opportunities for their students and the staff that we have currently and look to bring in through various ways. I just appreciate being here tonight. I think there's a lot of good candidates vying for this role, and I just look for your support and the opportunity if given. Thank you.
All right, also running for school board, Scott Barger.
I feel like I'm a little overdressed. Should I lose the jacket or? So for those of you that don't know, my name is Scott Barger. I'm obviously a candidate for the school board here in McCook. I did bring my family tonight. I'd like to introduce them. That's my wife, Tyra, back there of almost 20 years. And those three young gentlemen back there, Kyson, he's 16. He's a sophomore at the senior high. That's Creighton. He's 14. He's an 8th grader at the junior high. And that's Croy Jace, number 3. Yep, wild and crazy, waving his hands. He is 10. He's a 4th grader at Central. So, you know, one of the reasons I was asked, why did you want to run? Those 3 individuals right there, right? So we've got a great school system. We do. If you look at the test scores, if you look at all the different things that the kids are involved in, we're strong top to bottom. We're financially strong, but I want to keep that going. Not just for my boys, but for the generations to come. So I want to continue to keep the school strong. Obviously, you've hit on it multiple times. Robin spoke to it. Teacher recruiting and retention is a huge thing. It's a huge issue for us right now, as well as trying to bring a conservative ideology and approach to the school board. I think that's extremely important given some of the things that have come up recently. So.
All right, great. First question.
So I've had the pleasure of reading some articles in the paper where it's talked about, I think it's explained to what extent we pay a new teacher coming out of college. And I guess I was pretty shocked when I know that that's pretty much a Walmart wage. Right. Now, granted, maybe some people argue that, well, yeah, but maybe you don't have to work during the summer. It's okay, fine. But my concern is that that's not going to get it done. And at the same time, I'm also concerned that the only way around that is, well, we got to pay for it somehow. Sure. But right. What do you see? Because, yeah, I mean, you don't go into it for the money, but at some point you do have to put food on the table. And sure. Do you see that there's going to become such a competition between our school district and districts across the state or down into Kansas that we could get into a price war and this could become quite a problem? And
yeah,
can we deal with that?
I don't know specifically about a price war, but here's what I'll say. Specific to the teacher shortage and retention, you're right. When they get out, they're not making a lot, right? But we have to, I think, do our best to support our administrators' initiatives to go out and find the best people they can. And part of that is obviously being competitive with pay, right? I think another huge key for us is to also keep track of the graduates that we've got that are going to college, right, who are going to be teachers, who are from here, maybe bringing them back, maybe putting them with a master teacher here to student teach so that they'll want to come back, right? They're already from here, and we've got lots of examples of that, right? Mr. Gillen, currently, I think he's a fifth grade teacher, 4th grade, 5th grade teacher at Central. Mr. Bender's back there, he could correct me. I'm not, 5th grade? 5th grade, okay. So I think there's lots of things that we can do, but you're right. Competitive pay has got to be one of those things, in addition to supporting the teachers that we've got. We don't want to lose good teachers, right? So I think retention is a big thing too. So supporting them with resources that they need, so that they can grow in their job and feel like they want to be a part of, something special, which is what we've got.
So I'll take the opposite approach. How does a school board balance the need to provide quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayer burden?
So that's a slippery slope, right? So it depends on which side of the fence you're on. At the end of the day, it's my personal belief that a strong school system is an integral part of a strong community. I think if you asked the hospital, is it a recruiting tool? Is a strong school system a recruiting tool when you're bringing an individual out to interview? I think the answer to that would be yes. I don't want to speak for you, but.
I'm sure I'm allowed to answer that question as a panelist, so.
Okay, there you go. We got the wink, that'll work. So at the end of the day, I really feel like if we invest in our school, that's what's most important. Because again, like Robin said, Robin, I'm stealing your line. We're in it for the kids. So that's why I'm running. Yeah, so like I said, I didn't really go into much about me as a person. I am from Southwest Nebraska. I did graduate from McCook. My wife Tyra graduated from McCook. Our family's here. We love it here. We want to continue to be a part of this community, and this is a way for me to serve in that capacity, and I'm very humbled by the opportunity. Like Charlie said, there's a lot of great candidates, so thank you to everybody who stepped up to run this year. I'd appreciate your vote on November 8th. Scott, you took my sheet. I might need that.
I think I know what's next.
Thank you. All right. Runaway sheet there for a second. McCook School Board. Now remember, voters will be asked to choose for 3 for that 4-year term. Last, of course, we have Mike Langen. He is here this evening.
All right. Good evening. I'm Mike Langen. I moved to McCook in 1990. I guess I lived in Oberlin since 87, so I've been in this area for quite a few years. My wife Angie owns USA Pharmacy, and we've raised 3 sons, and they've come through the McCook school system. And I guess one of my strengths is experience. And the thing about that is you get experience from making mistakes. So I've got quite a bit of experience. But no, I think when it comes down to, the reason why I'm running is I want to maintain the school. We've had a decent track record. And then you got to lead by example. I have 3 boys, and they've been through the McCook school system. So you think, what are the capabilities of our academics? Well, Isaac's graduating in the top 3 at dental school, or that's where he's at right now. That lot can change between now and next May. But Eric graduated with honors from Clarkson, and then Alec so far is a 4.0 student at Chadron State. They're all 3 long-term going for a doctorate degree. Now, on the opposite of that, once we were getting close to empty nesters, my wife likes to keep us busy, and we took in 3 foster children a few years ago just on less than a day's notice. They came to us and know that this is the case, and what are we going to do? Well, we became foster parents in a matter of a few hours. But I got to see it from the other spectrum. They've had some challenges. And how does the school system work with those children? And I got to work with them, the principals, the superintendents, the resource workers, and to see how dedicated they are from top to bottom in this school. And that just was extremely impressive. And it just far exceeded anything that I could even imagine.
All right, first question.
So what are 2 or 3 strengths of the McCook public school system?
Okay, 2 or 3, there's a lot. Number 1, I think we are pretty good with our money. Unfortunately, a few years back, we had to RIF a teacher and our budget was tight. But then in the last 3 years, the mill levy has actually been reduced. But we've maintained a high quality of education. And I can prove that by just the examples that I said before. I've never seen a group of more dedicated administration, teachers, coaches, and we could do a lot more from that standpoint. And like I said, the other thing would be the buy-in of the administration and teachers. Through COVID, that was one of the nastiest things you could ever imagine happening to teachers. You got teachers with medical issues, and then you turn around and have this thing that's kind of like a Russian roulette disease come through. And the McCook school system handled that like champions, and in my opinion, did it the best in the state of Nebraska.
So I'm going to do the 180 with your question. So what would you say, we just need one weakness because I don't want you to beat us down too bad, but what would you say our biggest weakness is?
Probably our biggest weakness is, bringing back, and it's going to get tougher, is the battle for getting high-quality teachers back to this area. We're limited on finances because, there's regulations when you get into the board about how much you can do, what is out there, how much you can go over budget. I know that the administration, I've never seen anybody reject a salary package, but because it was too high and then it went back, and I rarely have seen that. And you've got the dedication to putting every bit of dollars back to the teachers that they possibly can through the budgets. And then but I think that we need to build the community to make people want to live here. We're less than, if you live in McCook and you want to fly out of Denver, you can be in concourse A, B, or C faster than if you lived in Denver. And it's going through security is a lot easier, and you don't have to pay for all that parking. We have so many advantages in southwest Nebraska. The weather, even though it gets dry and hot and windy, but it's probably the best place in the state of Nebraska. So that's going to, and there's a lot of other things. We got to sell the community to everybody because a salary is just a salary. People do that. It's a noble profession as being a teacher. We want to pay them absolutely as much as we possibly can because they were warriors coming through that COVID. I mean, you've got people with health issues teaching. They want to be in classes. They're driven. You go in there after hours, and those teachers are up there. But we've got to recruit. And then my thoughts are, some of my experiences is we're battling the big schools and the high dollar schools back east, which they have way more resources than we do. So how do we do that? And some of the thoughts that I kicked out there is something that I do where I work at Farm Credit. I'm an ambassador at the colleges, and maybe we can get some retired teachers that are in McCook, or we can figure out a way to have ambassadors at all these schools so we can get in front of their faces and sell McCook, because we have a really big thing to sell down here. And then look at the future with all the things that are possibly going to happen in the near future, with the potential of a change in the new swimming pool, the baseball fields. And I can see right now there are a lot of young people moving back to the area. We've hired some of them. We've been around a lot of other places that are hiring young people who graduated from here to come back here and start their families.
1 minute's closed.
Okay, like I said, I want to talk about leading by example. The example, I've had the higher end and the lower end. I've been lucky. I'm not saying that it wasn't, I think it was all on my wife, Angie, for getting those kids through school. But other things to think about, maybe we have teammates program for children or kids. Maybe we need to have teammates program after seeing through this foster system, some type of a teammates program for parents that are struggling because they don't know what to do. And they're just overwhelmed by all the things that are happening. And they've never been taught. We got to change the cycle of what they're going through. And if we can change the cycle, we can change how the outcomes of some of these children.
Thank you, Mike Langdon. He, of course, is running for McCook School Board. On to our last office. We have McCook City Council. Voters will be asked to choose 3 for a 4-year term. And up first, we have Mike Gonzalez. Mike Gonzalez will be first here running for City Council.
Good evening. I would like to thank the High Plains Radio staff for organizing this forum. I would also like to thank the Ambritz family for sponsoring this event. And I'd like to thank the panel for their participation, but I'll do that later depending on the questions they ask. I am Mike Gonzalez. I'm a lifelong resident of McCook. I was born and raised in McCook. My wife and I have 4 children, Amanda, Bianca, Miguel, and Mackenzie. In March of 2020, I retired from the Y, where I served for 45 years, 40 of those years as executive director. Of course, you know what else hit in March of 2020? I served on the McCook Public School Board for 8 years. During that time on Board of Education, I was involved in reorganizing the elementary school system, resulting in the renovation of McCook Elementary. We did pass a bond for that renovation. Little did I know when I joined the City Council that experience would serve me well, because we ran a bond for the new municipal building, and now we're running a bond for two more projects. I've proudly served on McCook City Council for 13 years. In November 2009, I was nominated by the Mayor, Dennis Berry, and confirmed by the council to serve out the term of Colleen Grant, who had passed away that October. While on the council, I've served the first 4 years of the 13 years as vice president, and I've served the last 9 years as the mayor. In 2014, we hired Nate Snyder as our city manager. This summer at a meeting of city administrators, I was asked if I could name one thing that was the most important thing that we've done as council. That would be it, was that we hired Nate. He's done a great job. He's joined a great staff. We have a great city council, and I'm honored to serve with them. And that's all I got to say about that.
Mr. Mayor, so our population's aging, workers are scarce, getting more scarce by the day. What is your vision of how McCook can overcome the grim reality of our demographics and expect to support the needs of this aging population that will require more transplants than ever before to service?
Well, I think you've heard a lot of the projects that we're going on tonight. We are trying to bring more young people to our community, keep the young people we have, and we have the projects that was mentioned, the bond with the swimming pool. We have the ballpark project, but also we have had a lot of work in housing, which is really tough in this area, but we're going to need that for the new people that come to our community. One of the things that I think our council has done extremely well and they're responsible for is safety. In the last couple of years, we've added to the fire department, staff to the fire department. We've added to the police department. We've updated our equipment. Just this year, we updated our police radio system to a statewide system. So it makes not only our citizens safer, but our police department safer. It's going to be a challenge out here. You know, we have, I think it's an advantage not to be on the interstate, but it's also a big disadvantage. And we're just going to have to work together as a community to keep our citizens and keep our town vital.
Hey, Mike, you mentioned in here that McCook's in the top third when it comes to the lowest levy taxes cities of the first class of the state of Nebraska. I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else, but it seems to me that your local tax dollars are going primarily to things that, you know, are closest to you. So if that's not coming from, you know, what's the downside to being on the lower end of that tax bracket, and how are we backfilling that to make sure that we have a city that's on a progressive path forward?
Yeah, we are very proud of the fact that where our tax levy is and where we rate as first-class cities, okay? So on the downside, we could raise the taxes and buy all new fancy equipment, but that doesn't really serve our need of our citizens. I also pay taxes. I don't like paying them. And when we raise taxes, then everybody, I think, in the community hurts. This year, with our budget, we actually lowered our tax levy by 2 cents. I'm very proud of that. And I think the citizens of McCook get a bang for every dollar that we spend and every dollar that we raise through taxes. Okay. It's been a real honor to serve on the McCook City Council, and I'd appreciate your vote on Tuesday, November 8th. Please take time to get out and vote. When I was a young boy, I used to walk by the original McCook Gazette building, and on that building's inscription it says, service is the rent you pay for the space you occupy in this world. And I really believe that, and it's great to see all these people that threw their hat in the ring tonight for her public service positions. Thank you for your time. Get out and vote.
Thank you, Mike Gonzalez, running for McCook City Council. Up next, Jared Mullenkamp, running for McCook City Council as well.
Hi, my name is Jared Mullenkamp. I'm a returner. I actually left McCook. I've been here since third grade and left and went to college and went to LA and moved back to McCook. And me and my wife realized that this was the lifestyle we wanted to live. And so we came back and we had some issues with McCook. And, you know, my age, we tend to kind of complain, I guess you could say. And so with that, I got approached by Bruce McDowell, who was a former council member, and he wanted me to run. And so talked with my wife, and we decided that if I was going to complain about things, I needed to understand how they ran, and I needed to put my money where my mouth was. So I ran for city council, and I won. Surprisingly, I didn't think that anyone was actually going to vote for me. But I love this community. I returned, and this is the style of life that we wanted to live. My wife did not like LA at all, and I mean, the traffic was quite a grind. So moving back here, the support, being engaged in the community, and all those things really led me to running for council and re-election. So.
Great. First question.
Do you believe that McCook is thriving? And if so, why? Or if not, what can the city council do to change that?
So I believe that we are maintaining. I think we have a lot of projects that are in the works, though, that are starting to drive our way to thriving. The pool, we've mentioned that a lot tonight, in the ballparks. We've done a lot with things that you can't see, with infrastructure and a lot of things with the sewer that we've had to maintain that really aren't great things to put money into, but you have to. And we're starting to get a lot of these things fixed. And I know that we're not talking about a lot of those things because they're not fun, but we're starting to trend in the right way in a lot of those things. And I think that'll start to open up tax money to do some of these better projects and put our money where things that can attract young people and grow the population of McCook. Uh-oh.
I'm just kidding. Someone has a question?
Oh no. This isn't going to be good, huh?
No. Sorry. Jared, it seems to me, I also am a returner, it seems to me that living in a conservative part of the world, part of the country, part of the state, conservatism is built into the fabric of our being. And there's so much good about that. But it does seem that things may struggle to move at times. And I think in the spirit of trying to be conservative with dollars and trying to make sure that we're being wise with how we're spending or not spending money. There's a few things that have come home to roost. Not having a swimming pool, having a bunch of projects that seem to be coming due all at the same time, and now concern with, this levy bill where, you've got two separate projects, but they're lumped together. And your thoughts on maintaining, staying true to the conservative nature and being smart and being wise, but also knowing that sometimes not spending money might cost us a whole lot more money in the future. What are the critical pieces that we need to be thinking about along these lines in the next 4 years?
The next 4 years? I mean, obviously we've talked about housing and attracting people to come here. You have to have both of those things. And I know Charlie can talk on the MEDC side about that. We're doing a lot with housing and trying to attract businesses to come here and doing all these things. But we have to invest in different things like pool and event centers and things to have the people to stay here. So we're not losing these dollars every weekend. I mean, seems like every weekend you hear someone, oh, I'm going to Lincoln, I'm going to Denver, I'm doing this. We need to keep those dollars here. And parks and some of these outdoor things that we have in our area are huge assets that we're really not taking advantage of. And I think we can do a lot more with that. And there's recreation grants out there through Nebraska Department of Roads, and I know the hospital's working on the walking trails and things like that. We're trying to get all these things to culminate in the next, hopefully in the next 2 years to really start attracting people. And I hope that's just the, tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot more that we can do, and there's a lot more things coming that we don't know about right now. But like I said, from McCook, grown up here, playing baseball, swimming in the pool, and doing all these things, and I've been an advocate of those these last 4 years that I've been on. It's been a learning experience, but I think there's a lot of things that I am getting ready to be able to, really put myself out there and do a lot more and make McCook, a great place to live.
All right, Jared Muhlenkamp, of course, running for McCook City Council. Up next, Gene Whedon. You just never know who we're going to ask next, do you?
Who am I? I'm Gene Whedon. I moved to McCook in 1998. I'm a former school teacher. I taught for 39 years, 16 years I taught in the junior high here. So that's who I am. Why am I running? Well, I have lived in McCook for almost 25 years and I've enjoyed the time. I believe it's the responsibility of every citizen to give back to the community something in the form of community service. Serving on the city council is one way that I can give back to McCook for everything that I have enjoyed, and I truly have enjoyed living in McCook. It's a great place to live. Serving on the city council for the past 8 years, I've seen a number of major projects created, and I'd like to be on the council to see these projects come to completion. A couple of examples would be a possible new swimming pool and improvements to a sports complex. We've also had, as was mentioned by Mayor Gonzalez or Jared, we have a housing addition. So there's other projects that are coming down. So that's who I am and why I'm running.
First question.
How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process for McCook, and how do you reach out to get input from a variety of sources?
How do I get people involved? Is that what you're asking?
Or just help you make decisions.
Yeah, well, I think the city council is very transparent in a lot of the things we do. For example, when we do the budget, we have 3 hearings. When we have an ordinance, we have 3 hearings. People are invited. You can, at the city council, you can fill out a form and ask to be on the agenda. So, for example, on the website, our names are listed there. My phone number. I have a certain individual in this community that calls me constantly and expresses his opinion about what we're doing as the city council. We don't always agree, but it's there. So I think you have to be transparent, but also I think that the citizens have to know that the council is willing to listen and willing to take their opinion and evaluate it.
Kind of steal the context of your questions, because it's great, the tax situation we have with the levy being a great one for us taxpayers, right? But do you see that there might be a time when that could become more of a detriment to us? I'm not saying taxes through the roof, but is there a point where we are taxing so little today that maybe it won't be us, but our children are going to be left with quite a mess because we haven't made the investments throughout the years that we otherwise might have with a slightly higher tax?
I can see the pros and cons on the tax levy. As was mentioned, this year we dropped our levy by almost 2 cents. But that's also an attraction to people. We're talking about why people want to come to McCook. It's because, as Jared mentioned, or Mayor Gonzalez mentioned, when you look at the first-class cities, there are 30 first-class cities, that's over 5,000 or more in Nebraska. We're ranked in the number 8th from the lowest. Well, that's an advantage. If I'm a property owner, that's an advantage. I might want to move to McCook because my taxes are lower. At the same time, I understand, if we're not meeting our needs, and I think there's 3 priorities that the city council has. If we're not meeting our needs, then yes, we need to start raising our levy. And I think citizens have to understand that why are we raising our levy is because we need to meet these needs. We did that several years ago because we wanted to hire 2 new police officers. We raised it. Well, now this year we were able, because of certain things, we were able to reduce it. So, okay. 1 minute. I have enjoyed living in McCook for 25 years. I appreciate everything that this community has given to me. It's been a wonderful place, and I want to give back to the city. And I think that I have worked very hard. In 8 years, I've been on the council for 8 years. I think I worked very hard to be a good council person. I've been open. I've listened to people. And so I think one thing is I think the council has done an excellent job with the budget. As we've mentioned, our tax levy is one of the lowest ones in the state of Nebraska. And so I think we should be very proud of it. Yet I think there's several things that we need. We have 3 priorities. One is safety, public safety, fire, police, and ambulance. Second one would be infrastructure. We need to continue to make improvements there. And the third one would be we need to recreational. It would be ballparks, parks, walking trails, swimming pools. So, thank you.
Gene Whedon running for McCook City Council. Next we have Linda Taylor running for McCook City Council.
Thank you for asking me why I want to run for city council. I was on city council about 20 years ago, and when I was on city council, I served as a mayor and I served as a council person, and I served under one of the very best city council mayors, which was Mayor Flora Lundberg, and I really learned a lot from that lady. Well, what happened with time, I've lived here my whole life, and I have a business here, so of course I have a lot of big interests in this community. But when I had to not run for city council again, my parents were elderly. I had a husband that was dying of end-stage renal failure, and so it was time I had to take care of family and step back. Well, I put my signs in the garage and I hung them up there, and I said, if there's ever a time that I decide that the city's not going the direction I think it should go, I'm going to run for city council again. The signs, my signs, anybody that sees my signs out there, they're bright yellow because they're 20 years old. They're not new signs. I got them back out because I thought we need to have our city go another direction. In talking about this, infrastructure is very important. Our airports are, we're so lucky to have Amtrak. And there is a Super 2 highway between McCook and North Platte that took us about 20 years to get. And so we're real fortunate to have that, and I want to see that that's completed. And I'd like to see that highway go on down to I-70, the Super 2, so we're connected really, really well. That's very vital for our community. The other thing that's very vital for our community is we do keep our swimming pool in mind, the kids in mind, bringing kids back to McCook. I am watching communities in this area surpass us. We used to be a leader. Am I done?
You are on your...
I'm done. Okay.
But the good news is you got a couple questions.
Okay.
Mrs. Taylor, this is a choose your own adventure, A or B, or if you're a go-getter, you can answer both. So you are the only non-incumbent running for city council. You are also the only female running and the only potential female on a currently 5 of 5 all males on our city council board. Talk about the importance of having a female voice as a part of that discussion. That's A. Part B, you decided to get your signs down out of the garage because you said things weren't going the way you think they should. I would like to know specifically, what are the things that are not going well that you would love to tackle?
Okay, the big thing is we should have never let our community be without a swimming pool. We should have never had our people going over to Oberlin and to other communities because we had no pool. We should have addressed that many years ago, because many years ago the pool was having its problems. Now, as far as being a lady on the city council, I'm used to, my industry is electronics. And of course, I've worked with a lot of men. I believe women look at things a little bit differently than men do. That's how God made us. And so we do look differently at things. But I believe it's a real asset having a lady's voice on the council.
So what is your approach to handling controversial and complicated issues?
Well, first of all, we need to take and work together as a council. We need to work through what we might think is different than what the other person is thinking, and we need to study the issue and know everything about it. And that's the thing I find is we need to check up on what's going on and why is this happening. So it's very important that we study issues and we work together to get them resolved. Well, if you would vote for me for McCook City Council, I would promise you that I would listen to you for what you think we need for the future of McCook. McCook is not growing in population. In fact, we're losing population. And I have watched other communities grow in leaps and bounds. Bringing in business is very important. Bringing in retail is important. Housing is important. We need to make our community attractive for people that want to come, as well as our children. I want my grandchildren to come back here and run a business and do whatever they can do because it's important. We're raising these kids. We need to bring them back to McCook, and we've got the best crop ever because we've raised them here. So that's an important part of it. So thank you very much for coming, and please vote.
All right, thank you very much. That's going to wrap up Candidates Forum 2022. Thank you for all of our volunteers, our panel, and everyone for coming here this evening. Make sure you get out and vote on November 8th.
When you think of barbecue, and I mean really good barbecue, then you should.
And a lot of things with the sewer that we've had to maintain that really aren't great things to put money into, but you have to. And we're starting to get a lot of these